All right. Welcome everybody to the Monday, August 26th, 2024 Norton Conservation Commission public meeting. Dan, if you would do the honors.
Happy to. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 bill extending several COVID-era policies and programs by allowing virtual meetings to continue from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. Members of the public attending this public hearing/meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by raising their hand virtually or pressing *9 if participating by phone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Norton Cable website, www.nortonmediacenter.org, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Thanks, Dan. So it looks like we have Joe, Dan, Tama, Mark. We're missing Paxton, Julian, and is Megan going to join us? No. Okay.
No, she's still on vacation.
Okay. That's right. She's in Greece. Okay. So it doesn't look like there are no new public hearings tonight. So we're going to go right to the continued public hearings, and the first file up is 250-1161, 171 West Main Street for an ANRAD. I understand there was some back and forth this week about the flagging, whether or not the area was flagged. John, that you went to the site and there were no flags. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was out there. There were no flags out there, so I sent an email over to the applicant's rep. And haven't heard back yet. So I don't know. Brian's on the call tonight. Maybe he can kind of outline some stuff. So,
Brian.
Okay, thank you very much, members of the commission. Brian Dunn with MBL Land Development and Permitting. Office at 5 Bristol Drive in Southeastern for the applicant Valentine Tool. Yes, we did receive John's email. I did reach out to our wetland scientists. We're in the process of trying to get an authorization from our client to reset the flags so that John or whoever is going to be going to review this wetland line will have the flags on the ground. I was not aware of the flags being missing, so we'll make sure that they're reset. So, and also make sure that whoever is going to be reviewing the wetland line does have that information. It will be, once we reset them on the ground, it will be the same location as shown on the plans that we've submitted to you. So once that's done, we can reconvene and have it looked at, and then have another meeting with you. So I would like to request a continuation for at least a month.
I have a question before we do this. Mr. Dunn, when were these flags set? Could you tell us when these were set? The original flags were set?
Yes, it's in the ANRAD application that we submitted. Let me double check that for you.
So, John, do we charge a fee for having to go out again?
yeah, if they choose to go with us, we're going to charge them the amount that potentially a peer reviewer would do it anyway. So that's how it happens. If we have to go out and reconfirm the wetlands because of any sort of inconsistencies with a submitted permit application. The other alternative is that they can request that a peer review be done instead. We do by hourly basis. I can't remember what the fee is. This would be the first time I've ever encountered this, or first time that I would ever have to, charge somebody for doing an ANRAD review here in Norton.
Okay. Just for the record, Paxton has joined the meeting.
Okay, so if I may through the chair, the latest date the botanist was out there was February of 2021.
So when the botanist was there, does it say if the flags were set?
Yes, well, they were definitely set because we located them. Yes, sir, through the chair.
So they were hung and they were field located by survey. They
That is
just-
correct. Those are the certifications on our plans.
So were they all missing, John? I mean, how far did you go? I'm just curious.
Well, the areas that I looked at were closest to the building. And I looked and I couldn't find really any remnants or any sort of flags, like bright, fresh flags, that I typically would see with any sort of ANRAD application request. So didn't see anything, and I wasn't going to go searching for hours because my time's valuable, and unfortunately, I've got other things to do.
Okay. So you will confirm, Brian, before, well, we're going to continue the hearing first, but you'll confirm that indeed it was flagged before John goes out, attempts to go out again.
Yes, that's what I would like to do. Yes, thank you.
So, well, the next public hearing is September 9th, but I'm guessing you want to go with September 23rd.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I need a motion to continue the public hearing for file 250-1161 to the 9/23/24 meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Tama, second by Mark. Roll call vote. Dan and Joe.
Aye.
Mark and Tama.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I think we missed Joe there.
He's on mute. I don't think he's
And Paxton.
So my computer was having issues there. I think I'm informed enough to vote on this, so aye.
Okay. So the motion carries. Joey, that was an opposed. Okay. Motion carries with majority. So just confirm with John, if you will, Brian, that the wetlands have indeed been flagged. Before we
Yes, once we get the flags reset on the ground, I will be in touch with John and Megan to let them know.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
Brian, one thing I would also request is that the wetland scientists go out there and do transect forms just to make this a little bit faster than, rather than to hold this up any further than it needs to be.
Okay, so one of the questions she did have was where did you want those transects to be done? Every
Well,
single?
she's the qualified wetland botanist, so she should be able to tell me where those transects are going. So typically I can tell you that, from my experience, I've never flagged nor have I ever submitted when I was a consultant an application without transect forms for a 176 acre parcel. So
Yeah.
I would say that at least some of the BVWs, because those are what is regulated under the Act. We obviously do not regulate IVWs, but one of my concerns that I do have when I was out there was that there's a culvert that exits one of the isolated wetlands that you're calling out, and where's that culvert go? I don't know. Does it go to another regulated resource area? Because that culvert would then technically be a stream, and it would be a BVW versus a IVW. So those are some things that the botanist should take a look at when she's out there, and I would definitely make sure that, just to try to expedite this approval process or review process, is to make sure that you take a finer look at a lot of these potential areas that you're calling IVWs and be sure that these areas are IVWs.
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
So the next continued public hearing, I don't know, do we have a file number yet for Zero Hill Street? Once again, Zero Hill Street.
I don't have one per se. I didn't receive one from the state. They may have released one in the last couple days, but they've requested a continuance for that one.
Okay, so just for the record, it's Zero Hill Street, map 24, parcel 62-02, for the construction of a 30,000 square foot industrial building and associated septic system, parking, 3.2 acres with laydown and stormwater management. So I need a motion to continue the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Dan, second by Mark. Dan and Joe?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark and Tama?
Aye.
Aye.
and Paxton?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So there's no new requests for COCs or extensions. Or next order of business is sign issue the order conditions for 250-1160 for 266 Taunton Avenue. Did everybody have a chance to take a peek at that? Do you want to call it up on the screen, John? Might be easier. If possible. 160. Anybody have a chance to look at it and see if there's any comments? 60.
Was this something that was attached via email, may I ask?
This was in the Google Drive docs.
Oh, okay.
Did you not see it? I actually have it. I can actually find it in my Google Docs drive.
Oh, if it's there, it's there. I thought there were only 4 attachments today, judging by the dates. Sorry, my
Right.
my mistake.
So it looks like we have 5 unique findings to this project, and the rest are special conditions, John. 160, 266 Taunton. Yep. So did anybody have any comments or questions?
I do not.
Okay. So I need a motion to accept the draft order of conditions as final. Excuse me.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tama, seconded by Paxton. Dan and Joe.
Aye.
Dan?
Right.
Contemplating? Okay. Mark and Tama.
Aye.
Aye.
Paxton?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is review of draft minutes from 8/12/2024. These look really good to me. I didn't have any comments, but Dan, wordsmith extraordinaire.
Dan, you gotta have something because
You
Megan's
gotta
not
have
here.
something.
Yeah.
Didn't we miss a period or a colon or I don't know,
Oh,
semicolon?
Okay, yeah, that's. Well, I mean, laid down area. I don't know. Does lay down area is that hyphenated?
No, it's one word in the business.
Uh,
One word all day.
am I getting the word right even? Lay down area.
I think you're trying to reach here, Dan.
It's a term that's widely used in construction.
Well, it's one
construction sites.
word.
Yeah, it is
How
one
about
word.
that?
I wouldn't lie to you, Dan.
Huh.
I would not. Is that
Oh.
all you got, Dan? That's all you got tonight? Come on. You can do better.
No, I believe you, Lisa.
All right. Anybody else? No?
Is on 250-1161, is it supposed to be Brain done or Brian done?
Sure. I mean,
I think that's a good one.
A lot of
That's a good one. I like that. I will let her know that.
I need a motion.
I wasn't there, so I don't.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
if you want me to, I mean, if you want me to
Yeah.
fix some stylistic things, or
I think we're good.
grammatical
Motion to accept the
points.
minutes, Lisa.
Okay, we got a motion by Joe and a second by Paxton. Roll call Dan and Joe.
I don't think you want me to, though, do you? There's a motion.
We're already
Lisa. I'll
past that,
second
Dan.
it.
I'm doing a roll call. Catch up.
Aye.
Aye.
Mark and Paxton.
Aye. Aye.
And Tom?
Um,
Abstain?
Sorry, I wasn't here, so I don't know if I
Abstain.
You abstain, yes.
Abstain.
that.
Okay. All right, we're just cranking right along. We're under old business, new business. Any updates, John?
For me, it's just getting back into the swing of things, coming back from vacation. Megan's out on vacation, so I'm doing all of this office stuff. But no, just new projects are coming in. We will have new projects on our next agenda. I think we have a septic repair project and some other potential solar clearing for the property that's, I guess, near Flatley. I think it's the Bottomley Bogs, that area up there. So they're going to be coming in with something. So that'll be in front of us for the next meeting. And I think there might be something else that I'm forgetting. Oh, a certificate of compliance for septic project. So those are the three things that are on the docket for next week.
Okay, for next time, yeah.
Under new business, Lisa, I'd like to make a motion to limit time to new projects to 10 minutes and continued projects to 5 minutes of discussion.
I have a motion on the floor by Joe. Discussion?
Interesting.
Any discussion?
I mean,
Any
is
thoughts?
that some, what are the benefits of, I mean, obviously the benefits are saving time, but does that still allow enough discussion and debate to give the commission what we need to understand?
This will allow us to streamline our projects so that our engineers are making sure they're submitting accurate documentation to us so we can review them accurately and not coming back to us multiple times. And unfortunately, you know, tying up this commission's time and dragging projects out.
How would we enforce that?
It's a time discussion, so you would be limiting any new project to 10 minutes. So if they need to continue beyond that time, it would automatically move to the next meeting, or we could close out after 10 minutes or 5 minutes.
Does that include the presentation time?
I would say that would be discussion, not presentation time.
Okay, I can tell you, based on my experience, I've experienced it with one commission, and it was quite brutal, I will say, because sometimes we would have gone through a month of preparation to try to get everything onto the record. You have, you know, an assemblage of people. It could be the lawyer, the engineer, the permitting person, and this is in the old days when we used to drive there, but still, you get all this ready to close and ready to information for the record, and you were cut short, and it was quite aggravating.
Was this in Bourne? Was it in Bourne?
No, it wasn't Newtown. I'll say that. The town began with a B on
Okay.
495. And they were very strict about it. But it was a big blow and a letdown, because here you were preparing, and then all of a sudden it was, you might have only had 5 more minutes to go. And then you have to reconvene and do it all over again and waste the client's time and money to get everything together again. I found it a little harsh. But what I do think a way to fix some of the longer ones is to have John do a little bit, I mean, I want to give John a little bit more, but to do a little bit more behind the scenes. I shouldn't even say behind the scenes, but typically, so for instance, this issue with the ANRAD, it could have been a 30-second discussion. Wetlands weren't flagged, go do it, come back when you get it done, bang. So I think we could be more efficient that way. But
yeah, I just foresee it could be very challenging to have a good, thorough discussion about some of the more complicated projects. Certainly there's some simple septic ones that come before us that we can get done in 30 seconds. I worry about larger scale ones that there's a lot of good discussion about some real finer details of the project.
well, and also
Maybe a way
butter
to
comments.
be flexible to that.
Are we going to cut off of butters? If there's a large and complicated project, I don't want to appear that we're dismissive either, so.
Can't do that. We can't cut
Are
off
there-
butters.
Have there been,
I might. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I'm not familiar with how other commissions have worked. Lisa, have you seen places or other successful approaches to, because I definitely get where Joe is coming from with how long some of the conversations can drag on, and the fact that if people are not really fully prepared, it gets very aggravating. But I just didn't know if you had some other solutions or other things you've seen that have worked.
No, well, I think the chair has to run a tight meeting. And they could be run a little tighter and a little more efficiently, and just saying, okay, you still owe us information, let's continue.
I know from my experience when I was a consultant is that they would give you a window of like 10, 15 minutes to present your project. And if you kept rambling on about the project, then they'd say, well, we have other projects on the agenda. The chair would say, we have other projects on the agenda and we need to move on forward. Is there anything else that, do you need to continue this, or do you need to basically, can you finish up, to talk about it? And I think that I can see both sides of it, is that we want to give the applicants the, sufficient amount of time, but we also want to eliminate any sort of, extra stuff that isn't really necessary for the commission at the time to kind of discuss, and also the board members to discuss and go on other things too, or the public or things of that nature too. So, I get it all and I understand it. So I'm open to kind of whatever, the board wants to do, but I could add time slots to people, and, if the commission feels that they want to, go by them, they can. If not, then, if they want to use it as a safety net, we can go that route. We can be a little bit more loose, but, if we're have like an hour-long discussion, we can potentially be like, all right, you've gone over your 15 minutes of time. I think it's time that we figure out another meeting set up for 2 weeks out.
So at one point, we did have time slots. Does anybody else remember that? So I think they were every 10 minutes, or however. Actually, Jennifer used to figure out, okay, this should only take 3 minutes because I'm going to speak and put this to rest, and this next one should take 10 minutes. And so she would assign time frames for them to each one. So maybe that would be helpful.
So I could do that. I mean, I can add time slots to each new project, and then depending on that, maybe add time slots to the continued projects if we know that it's going to be a lengthy discussion about stuff. But, my whole kind of thing with this is, when you submit a project, everything should be kind of all buttoned up and kind of everything together. And, the only thing that may, delay your project should be any sort of other outside reviews, like stormwater, any sort of other things that were not, you couldn't think of, out of the ordinary for things that we uncover or something like that. But, just to have kind of what Joe's saying, I understand what he's coming from a kind of having a tight knit meeting, but I think, I think it's just kind of you all to basically figure out what works best for all of you, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, one thing that we can definitely be aware of is those nightmarish situations, which are mostly when there's when the person applying doesn't want to do something, and we can get into these circular situations where, well, your property is going to flood. Well, my property, but I did this and that, and the last person, and then 5 minutes later, your property is going to flood. Yes, but I did that and the other. I think we have to, do something about ones where we're talking, and certainly the ones where we're talking in circles.
So Dan, that's why my motion was this way, because it was
Well, I'm sympathetic.
new projects, and
I'm sympathetic. I don't know if you can. I don't know if it can be done. I mean,
I think it can be, but I think we need to have Julian's engagement and buy-in with this, because he runs the meeting, right? So maybe we tell him, we got to start moving these along, and ask him. I think we should take a stab at it first because we're in charge, right? So maybe instead of giving people a time frame, we just say, okay, I think we've heard enough for the record tonight. We're going to continue this public hearing, and we just continue it.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a good thing. Internally, have kind of a stopwatch going in your heads, and just be like, okay, well, we don't want to listen to this rigmarole for 10 more minutes. So let's move on to the next thing.
It's probably why you don't want me running every meeting, because I would be cutting people off at the knees every 10 minutes.
I think that's great. If you
I'd be
want
okay
my,
with that.
I'd be okay with it.
You do a great job, Lisa.
So
So, but I mean, we have to defer to the chair, and it's,
So I think at this time, Lisa, I'm going to redact my motion, and we'll move it forward through further discussion
yes, when the chair is present.
when the chair is present.
Okay, and discuss it with him, and maybe see if Julian has a way out, or, maybe I take over for a little while and run a few meetings and move them along. I don't know. Maybe we keep sharing. I don't know.
So I'm going to throw another one at you.
Okay,
I apologize for this and you being the brunt of my battle axe this evening.
nothing hurts my feelings, Joe. I'm Teflon. Go ahead.
So I would like to move into at our next meet. I would like to make a motion to move into at our next meeting, executive discussion about policies and procedures and how we go about enforcement.
Okay, so that has to go on the agenda
Correct.
for September 9th. I don't think we don't need a motion for that, do you, John?
You do need a motion to go to basically vote to
Well,
go
to
into
enter it,
Yes,
but not
you do.
to ask to add one to the agenda?
So I need to advertise it. So I need basically everybody's vote to basically advertise it on the next agenda.
Okay.
So
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor from Joe to have an executive session following the 9/24 public hearing
About policies and procedures.
about policies and procedures. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Dan, motion by Joe, second by Dan. Roll call vote, Dan and Joe.
Aye.
Aye.
Paxton, Thomas,
Aye.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Anything else, Joe? Keep it coming.
Sorry, Lisa. I have
Okay.
felled the tree this evening.
All right, you good?
Good.
Now, can I introduce a motion that everyone attending the meeting should be wearing purple for the town and green for conservation? Or
I
not?
don't have enough purple shirts in my
That's
wardrobe.
a,
Yeah,
that's
that's a
a
good problem
joke.
for me.
Dan, I'm already wearing green, so I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, hold on. We still have old business. Enforcement order, 92 East Main Street. What's going on with that, Mr. John?
I think Brad Holmes is here this evening. He's going to give us an update. Hey, Brad.
Good evening, members of the commission. Along with me this evening is Joe Correnti for his property at 92 East Main Street and Joe O'Brien with Capital Engineering Services. So we discussed this enforcement order with the Conservation Commission during the RDA application for the tight tank. And we had two options with the commission, basically, was to address the millings that were put in the buffer zone in the riverfront area without a permit through either a new notice of intent, which at that point we would come back with something that would be a reconfiguration of the parking lot or bigger parking area or something different, or we could work under the enforcement order just to remove what was there and bring it back to what existed previous. So because we haven't come up with a design for something towards a notice of intent, we're looking to resolve this enforcement order to bring it back to what existed previously. So what we submitted was a restoration plan to remove the milling area to what existed previously, which we have identified on the restoration plan using the 2023 aerial image. So we'd scrape off the asphalt millings, we'd loam and seed it, and then leave it as is, which would be what it existed previously. Since the enforcement order Mr. Correnti hasn't done any activities in the back lot in the sense that there is, existing field. He's left it to sit until we have this agreed upon with the commission, and at some point we'll get to mowing the field and, maintaining to what was there, but that's just maintenance of the project. Oh, no, I'm sorry, maintenance of the property, not part of the restoration proposal. So we're hoping to get this behind us so that we can continue with the maintaining the property and bring it to what existed previously. With that, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Okay, so John, did they submit a plan for the record for the restoration that's acceptable?
They did, and to my knowledge, Brad, it was the same plan that you came in with originally, right?
I can share my screen and pull it up if that helps.
Yeah, let me just, you're a co-host.
It's the same plan.
Yeah.
You're correct. We haven't made any changes to it.
Yeah, why don't you just pull it up on your screen?
That's that's visible, okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's the area shaded in red, which would be the new milling area that would be addressed through this enforcement order.
Are you showing any sediment controls here?
We do have a kind of a task list. Yes, we would put erosion controls at the limit, stake straw wattles prior to any earthwork. We do have a memo that kind of has a step-by-step action item. We would put a straw wattle line along the limit of the milling area. We'd stake out the line so that it's shown in the field. An excavator would remove the millings. We'd top dress the area with loam, and then we'd seed it with a slopes and shoulder seed mix from the Mass DOT to stabilize it. And once completed, we get a memo to the commission with photographs to document that we've completed this work. And that's outlined in the memo accompanying this plan.
I have a couple questions here, if you're ready.
Okay,
Sure.
then.
What are we going to do to make sure that beyond this area we're not encroaching again? Is there going to be some large boulders, some structures, some buffers, so this area is not going to be used and impacted again?
What was impacted was the placement of millings on top of the field area. That's the result of our enforcement. We're not proposing any change in use of the site. The site has always been maintained as a storage yard or a commercial lot. At some point in the future, should we need to modify this design or change the use, we're going to need to come back to the Conservation Commission through a notice of intent.
So
We're
our
not
last,
proposing-
our last,
Right.
our
proposing
last,
any change in use.
our last interaction said that they were going to continue parking vehicles back there and continue to use this area after it was seeded back into an area. So could you explain to me how, from our last discussion till now, we got to here and how we're going to make sure that we're not going to impact this site again?
Sure. The commission issued an enforcement order for the placement of the millings. The commission hasn't issued an enforcement order for a use. We documented in the RDA application, this property goes back to way before the Wetlands Protection Act. We're not proposing any change in use here. I'm not saying that we're going to put loam down here and then we're going to go drive a Mudfest tractor trailer scene here. But we're not proposing any use restrictions on the site.
But once we applied the millings, or the millings have been applied, we have changed the site use. So,
No, the site use hasn't changed. The commission had issued an enforcement order for the unauthorized placement of millings within the buffer zone in the riverfront. The commission did not issue an enforcement order for use on the property. We've addressed the action here with the millings.
But by placing the millings, you facilitated a use from vacant land to a parking.
It
Right.
was never vacant land.
Was
I'll
never
show you
vacant.
the imagery here.
Can I just ask, Mr. Holmes?
so before you show the
Okay.
imagery, one situation we can do here is we could definitely rectify this with a whole bunch of borings across the site to identify where it originally was, if we need to go that route.
Your commission can issue an enforcement order if they go out and they find that the use isn't along what was there and they want to issue an enforcement order. You could do that. What we've done here is we've identified the 2023 line of where the millings are. Basically, this is a degraded riverfront that the grass area of the field has kind of grown over the millings that were there previously. I mean, if you did borings out there, you're probably going to find more degraded area that we've identified in the plan. But in order to come to a resolution with the commission, we're using this imagery. If you go to 2001, you can see that it's even more highly used. You go to 1990s, it's even heavily used more than that. We included in the RDA application a detailed aerial imagery and topography here to go so that you'd have that on record as far as what the site was used for. We're not proposing any change in use here. We're not proposing something that's out of line with the commission and trying to not be agreeable. We're addressing the enforcement order the easiest way we can to bring it back to what it was. As I said, if there's a need that area has to be used for something different, or the use of the loam and seed isn't suitable, we need to come back to the commission with a notice of intent.
So after you loam and seed it, I'm just asking a question, nothing's preventing you from parking vehicles back there, correct? Just
We're not
asking a question.
proposing we're not
Right.
proposing
Like I
anything.
said,
other than that.
I think what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, and I think the historic areas largely support this, is that the use of that site for parking vehicles predates this violation, but it also predates the Wetlands Protection Act. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Because I can see aerials going back to the 70s where it looks like there are vehicles parked in that same area. So that was grass before, but some point in the last few years, the millings were placed, and that's what we're discussing here.
Do we know when the millings were placed?
The millings that were there previous to 2021, I don't know when those were placed.
Okay.
Again, the enforcement order is for the new millings, so we're trying to
Yep.
address that.
Yep.
It's highly degraded riverfront area, there's no question about it. Does it meet your degraded versus non-degraded criteria for the riverfront regulations? That's something that we didn't get into a study on, because the easiest route for us is to address the enforcement order this manner and then regroup and come back to the commission another day through a notice of intent if that's what we need. But
Right, but
to that level yet.
if the millings, so that you know as well as I do, oops, my earbud just fell out, that the definition of degraded is lacking topsoil. So if you threw the millings on to change that, then you degraded the riverfront area yourself. So once you revert it back now to loam and seed, you will have non-degraded riverfront.
Right, exactly.
Right.
This is
Okay.
fill on top of fill on top of fill. It's a historic years of fill. Now, does that fill have topsoil? Yes, some of it does, some of it doesn't.
Yeah.
Could we do a study and do borings every 50 feet and come up with a analysis and then come back to the commission and say, well, this level and that level? Yes.
Yeah.
That would be something that we could look at a notice of intent with.
Yep.
But also there's a significant area here that could offer mitigation for new degraded riverfront. So we could do a 2-to-1 ratio mitigation for a new amount of degraded riverfront area, through a notice of intent if that's what we were looking at. But that takes studies and stormwater management and something that is going to need more time.
Okay, so I assume you're looking to seed this fall.
We're
Ideally?
looking to, yes, we're looking to comply with the Conservation Commission and resolve this enforcement order. And yes, this fall would be the time to do it.
Okay. John, do they have to follow this up with a God, I haven't worked on enforcement orders in a while. Do we have to follow this up with a notice of intent to rectify the enforcement order for the work?
They don't have to.
Okay,
That was one of the things that I recommended as an after action if they were planning on
Yeah.
doing something there.
okay,
If they're doing this as just a restoration, then they can do it under the existing enforcement order. But you know,
okay,
in the event that it doesn't comply with what they're showing on the plan, then they're going to have to file a notice of intent. So
Okay.
as part of this enforcement order, they need to make sure that they do everything as outlined in this
Okay.
this mitigation plan that they're presenting to us.
okay. The one thing I'll ask is, you mentioned that you have this description and the sediment control measures in a separate memo. And I really want to see that on the plan so that the contractor has if you don't have everything together.
I did put the it's in the memo, but I copied and pasted the tasks on this 1 through 7 here.
Okay, and the note or the detail for the sediment control measure?
I
And
don't
then-
have a detail for the straw wattle.
Okay,
I could follow that up with a,
right. So
schematic.
then how does the contractor know what they're ordering and how much, what to put in? So that's why, if you could add a detail to this, it would be great.
we can do that.
Okay. So it sounds like we need a vote, I guess, to accept this restoration plan as a step towards rectifying the enforcement order,
Yes.
right, John? I think.
That's correct. That's correct, Lisa. I didn't know if you were looking for.
Okay.
You're correct in that statement. Yes.
Okay, okay. So is the commission, first of all, does the commission have any other questions about this? Comments?
My question is still, how do we identify this limited area? And how do we continue to make sure that it's not being impeded upon? There's nothing in this plan that I see that's not saying we can just go back to where we put millings on it.
Well, they've identified the limit of the millings, and they're saying that they're going to remove those millings and restore the area, and that's really all they're asking us to rectify, not what could be done. That's going to have to be the subject of another notice of intent, or a notice of intent.
And how do we enforce that at this time?
Well, we won't release the enforcement order until they mow this place twice, right? Just like you'd treat it just like you would an order of condition. So they'd have to plant it, seed it, mow it a few times, and say it held, it achieved final stabilization, and then we lift the enforcement order.
But in most projects, we at least ask for a minimum of signage not to go beyond an area.
You would if you had a notice of intent and we were in the buffer zone and we were looking at an undisturbed buffer strip. You wouldn't do that if you had a yard that was maintained and, is a yard. This is somewhat similar to that as it's a maintained property.
Unfortunately, it's an after the fact. This is an after fact situation. This isn't fresh virgin. This is after the fact.
Right.
You're correct. It's an enforcement order to address the unpermitted action of placement of millings in the buffer zone and riverfront. This proposal remedies that by removing that.
Yeah, I just think we
My
have to be,
personal opinion to the issue of there being some limit here, or I guess there has to be some trust that the property owner doesn't want to go through this again. And so they know they made an error. They're offering to resolve it, but it doesn't change the limit of the property that they can use for the purposes they were using it before, I think is the argument here.
I will say this.
yeah,
Is that this enforcement order prevents the issuance of any future notice of intent for the property. So they need to make sure that they comply with. They need to make sure they comply with this enforcement order to a T. If they don't, they'll never be able to do anything with that property because the majority of the property is within the riverfront area, and it's in the client and the applicant's best interest, to make sure that they do and facilitate this mitigation plan.
And any time in the future, should there be a proposed project, we'd submit a notice of intent. That doesn't preclude us from preparing and submitting a notice.
Correct. So, John, do we need a motion, a vote on this, or it's for discussion purposes that we will accept this as the remedy to the immediate enforcement order, or on the path to rectifying the enforcement order?
That's correct. As long as the majority of the commission's comfortable with this mitigation plan and restoration plan as proposed, the applicant and their representative can move forward with this project. And then once everything's completed and they've come to terms of, potentially having closed out, then they can come back to the commission and with all the documentation, and then the commission can vote to release the enforcement order, and that would be a vote.
Okay, I would just ask that you add that sediment control measure.
I will update the plan and get that to
Okay,
John in his office.
okay. All right. So I think, well, if we don't have to make a motion or take a vote, John, I think you're going to tell if the majority of the commission members are okay with this. So,
If anyone has objections to
Yeah.
the plan as it's laid
Yeah.
out here this evening, please
Speak now.
speak now or raise your hand.
Yeah.
If you're opposed to it, just let us know.
Like I say, I have, the one opposition I have is that, there's a determining line that is well noted that it should not be infringed upon.
maybe a good idea to address that, Joe, is to maybe put some distances. Should maybe have some distances on the plan, Brad, if that makes sense.
We would have the limit staked in the field by the surveyor so that we know
Yeah,
what
but those could go away. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, what would be interesting is maybe some distances in an area. Oh, I see you have 14,500 square feet there. That's good. But I mean, for us to, to make sure that to address Joe's concern, that everything was removed, maybe we just need some distances on that, around that.
Sure, I
Probably
can
going
put some
there.
distances, some length and width.
Would that be helpful, Joe? So that you could at least take a plan in the field to,
Anything would be
verify it?
helpful. Anything would be helpful for the future use.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
so that whether I'm here or you're here or John's here or any of the board members here, that it has a document that we can actually
Yep.
go by.
okay. So I think if you can add some distances around there, offset from the property line between the red, the start of it and the width. So you can just kind of follow it all around. So you can take a tape measure and measure it in the field. I guess that's the litmus test there.
Yes, I can certainly do that.
Okay.
I can get distances and get a revised
Yep.
plan too, along with that sediment control.
Okay.
So
All right.
just a clarification on my end,
Thank you, Brad.
Sure, thanks. Just before you close this item out, if you're not going to vote on it, that's again, that's your decision. But we just would like to have some. We're leaving here that we have an accepted plan. I guess that the commission is in agreement with this. We just don't want to get this work done and then there not be in the minutes that it was agreed upon or.
Well, if somebody wants to make a motion that we accept the proposed restoration plan pending some distances and
The
the
recommended
sediment
changes.
control line, yeah, then
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the plan, providing they provide accepted measurements and distances.
okay.
Second.
Motion by Joe, second by Dan. Roll call vote, Dan and Joe,
Aye.
Aye.
Mark and Tama,
Aye.
Aye.
Paxton.
Aye.
You got it, Brad.
Thank you very much. Just I want there to be any confusion.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
Two.
So we have next item is a violation notice for 258 Plain Street.
Yeah, I got back from vacation and talked to Craig about it. He's looking to see if his client potentially might relocate the actual building outside the riverfront area. So he's working with them to figure out if that's something they could do. That doesn't, fix the whole entire situation with the illicit activity within riverfront, but for the structure and the addition that they're looking to do, that potentially alleviates the concerns for them getting the addition that they're looking for. If it's outside our jurisdiction, we don't have any, weight with any sort of determination. So they're looking at that, and then they're going to come in with a kind of a mitigation plan. I was talking to Craig about it. So they're going to be coming in with a mitigation plan for kind of rectifying the situation the best they can. I don't know what they plan on doing, but it's going to be something that the commission will have to take under a lot of consideration. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the last.
Is it possible just to elaborate on the actual violation itself?
So yeah, sure, Paxton. I can outline it. It's not really good because the amount of riverfront area they have on the site is less percentage-wise. So let's say they had 90,000 square feet of riverfront area. That means they're only permitted to alter 9,000 square feet under the regulations, 10%.
Yeah.
5,000 or 10%, whichever is greater.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they've gone overboard of that quite a bit. So they need to come up with some mitigation, and I was informed that Brad Holmes, who we just met, may be the one that comes in front of us for some sort of idea or some sort of potential proposal of what they plan on doing. I've never actually had some sort of mitigation plan that's gone over the 10% before, so this will be an interesting pathway. Typically, these sort of things are unique and they don't happen very often, but sometimes they do. So we'll see how the discussions and the mitigation or proposed restoration pans out. The YMCA billboard notice, that was a violation issued by me to the landowner, which is the YMCA. Clear Channel is the company that manages the billboard, and they cut some vegetation without notifying us. And I quickly let them know that they need to, they're required to notify us so we can go out and check the physical demarcated markers that are out there in the maintenance quarter that they had under a previous permit. They have acknowledged that they have exceeded their perpetual conditions that were outlined in the order, and they're willing to work with the Conservation Commission and the Conservation Department to rectify the situation. So they are actually having a survey crew go out there and find the physical markers, map them out, so that way they have a clear understanding of where the markers are in the future. And if there's any sort of restoration or mitigation work that needs to happen, they're going to follow up with us on that. So I'll be heading out there once the markers are in, and we can kind of look at it because I have all the plans from the past permits, and we can have a discussion as to kind of what the commission thinks is necessary or whether there was minimal disturbance. But they did clear cut the area if anybody's driven by the YMCA as of late. So you can definitely take a look if you're driving by.
Well, this isn't the first violation. They had a violation in the past where, because it was a paper billboard, they just took down the old billboard and the paper just ended up in the drink.
Mm-hmm.
And they cut vegetation. So I think this is the second time.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to, I'm sure the Y just leases the space. My question is that it sounds like a communication breakdown amongst Clear Channel and their maintenance crew. So what I would like to see is not the why. I would like to see, well, in addition to the why, because the why just sat there last time and went, oh yeah, we talked to Clear Channel. I want Clear Channel. If they're going to lease, I don't care if they're not the owner. I think Clear Channel should be in front of us. I think the head of maintenance should be in front of us for Clear Channel.
Okay.
Please,
Well,
please respond to this.
I will make that recommendation. What I've told them so far is that before we even can have those kind of conversations with the Conservation Commission, I need more information from them. And I said that the first steps for them is to identify where the markers are in the field, so that way I can assess and evaluate it and be able to report back to the commission. So they're aware of the situation, they understand the circumstances, and they're taking full accountability for all the work that they've done. At least the person that was in charge that I was talking to. It wasn't
From Clear Channel, not the why, right? Okay.
Clear Channel, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
The why was just like a deer in the headlights. Like, we just leased this, we don't know. So, yeah. Anyway.
So they'll be coming in front of us to rectify this violation, and they are definitely have informed me that they don't want to go the enforcement route. So I told them that it's probably smart for them to try to resolve this within the next couple weeks if possible.
Mhm.
So they said they're going to have a survey crew out there this week, and I actually went out there last week to actually talk to them and kind of go over it. And I wasn't going to go brushing through all the woods to find some markers. I said, you can have your survey crew outline where they are, so that way we can have a better understanding as to kind of what may have been done outside the realm of the permit.
So did the markers did they disintegrate? Were they just wooden stakes? Because perhaps they need to put something else out.
Well, that's kind of the suggestion that I'm going to put in, is whether it be a metal post or a metal rod with survey caps on top of them.
Yep.
It's one or the other. Something that's you're going to be able to find it with a metal detector if you want to go out there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. Is that all you have, John?
That's all I have for right now. Megan is coming back tomorrow, so if you want to give her a bunch of work, just let me know.
Wouldn't do that to her. All right. Finishing record time. That's because we had nothing new. So we need a motion to adjourn, 7:27 p.m.
I will make that motion, I guess.
All
I will
right.
second that motion.
All right. All those in favor, in classic style, thumbs up.
Aye.
All
Great
right.
job, Lisa.
Good
All
night.
righty.
Good night, everyone. Great
Night.
meeting, Lisa. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good night, everybody.